Hey everyone, Joe here. We're back on Shack News, and we have a new guest for you. We have Taylor and Jamie from Activision, and they're going to be talking to us about Infinity Warfare. I'm very excited.
So
Infinite Warfare.
Infinite Warfare from Infinity Ward.
Exactly. It's kind of a tongue twister for me a little bit.
IW.
Right. So, okay. What do you do with the team?
I'm the narrative director at Infinity Ward.
Cool.
So my job is all things story, sort of the creative presentation of the narrative.
Awesome. And then Jamie, you are...
I play Lieutenant Salter. I am Jamie Gray Hyder, and I am sort of the player's partner character throughout the game. I'm once the player is promoted to commander, I'm kind of the second in command, and I'm right there with the player the whole game, leading you through and supporting you.
Awesome. So you were talking about the narrative and how you work on the narrative specifically. Can you talk more about what you guys have done to sort of take this narrative to the next level?
Sure. Well, a big point of focus for Infinite Warfare from day one was a class-leading narrative, a really deep, rich storyline that players could immerse themselves in. And we've truly been doubling down on that, from day one. Jamie and I have been working together over a year now to make this thing a reality. We started with just kind of meeting each other first and talking about the character, and then we did weapons training. We work really, really closely with a bunch of personnel from our U.S. Armed Forces. We have U.S. Navy SEAL consultants. We have U.S. Navy officer consultants, and we really hope that sort of homework and that collaboration is going to net something really cool on the screen for everyone.
So when you start building a narrative, you obviously have to start with actually, this is a good question. Do you start with characters, or do you start with sort of a story that you want to work towards?
Well, where we started on Infinite Warfare was we wanted to tell a story about leadership. We wanted to tell a story about the burden of leadership. In most shooters, in most military shooters, you play as the new guy.
Right.
You play as a grunt. And what we thought was going to be really interesting was to not play as that character, but to play as the guy that is leading the charge. Captain Reyes is the tip of the spear, is what we like to say. It's equivalent to, rather than playing with Price, and Price is this awesome character, you are Price.
Right.
That's what we're going for, and that really meant rethinking the way that we sort of fashion this narrative. So we started with that, and then what we do is we say, what is that player character? What is that character that I'm going to occupy as the protagonist of Infinite Warfare? And then which kinds of characters do we want to surround him with?
Right.
And so in the case of Lieutenant Salter, we're surrounding Captain Reyes with someone who has been his wingman for 10 years. They've been through everything together, thick and thin. They are confidants with each other, and through the course of the events of the story, Reyes is field promoted to commander due to this devastating attack and the captain of their carrier Retribution being killed, and the dynamic of what the change in their ranks due to their interpersonal relationships.
So you talk about leadership and how that's sort of the focus of the game. Are there any interesting ways where you're exploring that in gameplay, like how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. We couldn't just say you're the leader, but not actually back it up in our gameplay.
Right. So
as captain of the Retribution, the player is able to choose missions. We have what we call the ops map, and it sort of shows you the entire solar system. And even though you get missions from command, Admiral Rains is a leader and a mentor to both Lieutenant Salter and Captain Reyes. You take those missions from command because that's what you do, but you can also choose to take the carrier Retribution and assault different targets of opportunity of the enemy. You can do those missions in any order, and they will net you things like new tech, new weapons, new upgrades, and those are opportunities for the character to spend more time with Lieutenant Salter, for example,
right,
and to learn more about the enemy. You can sneak up on enemy commanders as they're having a meeting, trying to figure out what to do with this thorn in their side, because you guys are a thorn in their side, and so you get to learn more about who they are, what makes them tick, what's their motivations. So So again, that's a real way that we're saying we're not just paying lip service to this notion of leader. You actually get to be the leader.
Right. Awesome. So, Jamie, you're in the game. That's awesome. What's that process been like from start to finish, sort of like learning about the character and that sort of thing?
Well, like Taylor said, we've actually been working on this. Our component, at least, has been for over a year now. So we've been doing performance capture, where they're actually getting all of our physical movements at the same time that they're capturing our face and our voice, and so it's all coming in one package. And so we've been doing that for over a year. And initially, I sat down with Taylor and I sat down with Brian Bloom, who wrote the game and is also playing the player in the game, and really thought about what makes my character different, what makes her nuanced. She's kind of this like badass that doesn't follow the rules, but she doesn't make mistakes. She's not sloppy or cocky. She really just knows how to get things done, even if it's a little outside the lines. And so for her, the challenge is kind of balancing her and Reyes' new relationship now that she's his subordinate.
Right.
When they've been equals their whole life. And from an actor's standpoint, you adorn all the motion capture suits, and you have a helmet with these little microphones that look like antennas, and
right.
this camera that just sits in front of your face that you're like opening cabinets into, and like you take a little while to get used to the technology, but after working for an entire year with Brian and with Taylor, you really develop these really strong bonds that we hope will really raise the stakes for the player in the game, because the player has to make some really difficult choices that are ultimately human choices and really face us in the world and our armed forces in battle. So the player has to make some more choices than they typically would because of the positions that they're put in.
Right. So we saw some footage. We saw some cool stuff. I think we're working on it right now to make sure we can see it. But can you talk more about sort of the other parts of the gameplay that are going to be new in the game that you're bringing to it?
Sure. One of the tenets of this game was to create a class-leading narrative, a very deep, immersive story. But another big focus of the game was, let's take Call of Duty into a brand new setting. And why did we take Call of Duty into a brand new setting? Well, it afforded us a lot of new mechanics, a lot of new gameplay types, a lot of new setups, and that's been a very, very exciting part of Infinite Warfare as well. We like to say that we are taking Call of Duty where it's never been before, but we're also doubling down on all of the things that make Call of Duty what it is,
right,
and expanding on those things. So again, a very deep story. We talked about how most military games you play as the new guy, and then we looked at movies like Black Hawk Down.
Right.
In Black Hawk Down, the mantra, the mission, the theme of the story is you fight for the guy next to you. No one fights alone is a saying that Call of Duty has used in the past.
Right.
And then we looked at movies like Saving Private Ryan, and in Saving Private Ryan, the mission is saving Private Ryan. You play as Captain Miller, and it's a whole different thing. It's not about necessarily fighting for the guy next to you as much as it's about finishing the mission.
Right.
So because our players are so sort of conditioned to playing as a new guy, we thought in Infinite Warfare it would be really interesting to take our players on a journey from being a guy who's fighting for the guy next to you to being a guy where the mission comes first. And that arc for our character, we think is going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned Captain Price before. I know you guys are going to be doing the remaster, right? Which is really exciting. That when it comes to Call of Duty narratives, I feel like you look at that game and you're just like, wow, right? So I guess the question is, what have you sort of taken from that inspiration and brought to the new game? I mean, we've sort of talked about it already, right? But it is interesting that you guys have chosen to do that now, right? That's not, that isn't a coincidence, right? To bring that game back.
The Modern Warfare remaster?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we're all huge fans of Modern Warfare, right?
Yeah.
Like, right? You,
absolutely.
Joe? Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, like some of these formative gameplay experiences that are just like etched in our brains, right? I mean, it was truly, when they decided that Call of Duty didn't just mean World War II, right? That was a big moment.
Absolutely.
Up until that point, Call of Duty was synonymous with World War II. And so when they made Modern Warfare, it was like, really? Can you take Call of Duty out of that setting?
Right.
And for us, I think what's interesting about having Modern Warfare Remastered come out alongside Infinite Warfare is we're saying sort of the same thing with Infinite Warfare.
Right, yeah.
We're saying, does Call of Duty, does it have to be now modern or near future, or can it be sort of something else?
Right.
And the same way when Modern Warfare was coming out, it was, well, can it be? And the resounding answer was yes. Call of Duty can be sort of all of these things, because really at the heart of it, what you're telling is you're telling a war story. And it's such a rich genre. And as storytellers, and I think as actors and artists, what's interesting is what you want to do to tell an effective story is you want to put pressures on characters. Right? When you put pressures on characters, it reveals more about who they are.
Right.
And so what a perfect pressure, but war. And in this case, in the case of Infinite Warfare, it's not just war, it's the precipice of the destruction of the Earth as we know it.
Right.
You know, so you've got a guy and, you know, his wingmen who are partners who are suddenly thrust into this new role, and the stakes couldn't be higher. He's got to learn on the job what it's like to be the captain of a ship.
Right.
She's got to learn what it's like on the job to be the XO of the ship and to interface with her partner with a new dynamic, all while staving off this incredibly dire invasion from an implacable foe.
So, talking about this new enemy, can you go into more detail about them and sort of their motive behind this whole thing?
Yeah, in our universe, what we are saying, and again, this is all based on reality. It's based on, we use these jumping off points to create this narrative. What we are saying is we are running out of certain minerals and certain materials and certain things that we need. In California here, we're running low on water.
Right, absolutely.
We are running out of things like tin, metals that you need to make things like semiconductors. And so what happens? How do we sustain life on Earth as we know it without these materials? Well, you know where rare earth materials are not rare? In outer space.
Absolutely, right.
And people have said that the first trillionaire is going to be the person who can successfully mine an asteroid and bring those materials back to Earth. Mm-hmm. And so we thought, well, if there's all this money out there, there's going to be greed, there's going to be conflict, and out of that conflict and out of that greed comes this movement, the Settlement Defense Front.
Right.
And they are a fascist, totalitarian, state-driven group of mercenaries, basically, who have decided that they should be the true heirs to controlling all these resources. And so, in the same way that we can imagine, if someone cut off our oil supply today, stopped, dropped zero, what would happen if the same thing, but now amplified by everything, happened in this future war? It would mean that civilization as we know it would cease to exist.
Right.
And so that is the enemy that Reyes and Salter are up against.
And it seems like you've always had an enemy, but it sort of raises the stakes even more when you think about this could be in the future, like this could totally happen, right? It's an insane thought.
It seems far-fetched. It's really not that far-fetched.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Do we have our footage? Are we good? Okay, we're gonna have to end with it. So, I'm trying to think if there's anything else we want to talk about.
Well, we can talk about. I mean, in the event that we don't get the footage to show, we can talk about some of the stuff that people did see.
Absolutely.
In the gameplay piece we showed last night. What we showed is Lieutenant Salter and Captain Reyes returning from a mission, being back on the carrier Retribution, going to the bridge, and Captain Reyes getting updated on some new hotspots that are available on his ops map. And now, at his discretion, Captain Reyes can choose a new mission. In this case, choose to assault a Settlement Defense Front destroyer, and then launch out in their Jackals. Lieutenant Salter and her Jackal, Captain Reyes and his, dogfight against enemy fighters. We call them Skelters.
Nice.
And again, that dogfighting mechanic and that flying mechanic is a persistent vehicle that you return to throughout the game.
Awesome.
It's not a one-off. It's not on rails. This is a vehicle that that has a depth of control that I think the players are really going to enjoy and really like to return to over and over again.
Awesome.
After they take out the enemy fighters, now they are free to assault this enemy destroyer. They jump out of their ships, and now it's this brand new to Call of Duty zero-G combat. And what we did is we talked to Mitch and we talked to our Navy advisors, and we said, "What if you were fighting in zero-G? What would you want?" And they said, "We
like,
would
"Wait, are you
want
okay?"
a way to get into cover quickly." The Call of Duty gameplay that we all know and we love, which is basically take cover, find a flank to your next cover, strategically outflank your enemy.
Those angles.
We're doing that, but now we're doing that in zero-G. And so you have a grapple,
Right.
and your grapple is your way to go from one piece of cover to another. And the really interesting thing about that is now instead of flanking people left and right, you can flank them vertically.
Right.
You can if you flank to a piece of cover that's upside down, that reorients you, so now what was previously upside down is no longer upside down.
Yeah.
So your enemies are going like, "Wait, where is he?" And you get the beat on them.
Right.
And so it's a really strategic mechanic that we are really, really excited to share with our players.
Awesome. Yeah.
And then, of course, you get into the bridge of the settlement defense front ship. You restore gravity, and now it's basically that Call of Duty experience that everyone has grown to love.
Right.
And but it's now just added with new weapons, new tools. We showed a shield. You have a shield that identifies your enemies. You can bash them with it,
Nice.
and you can akimbo. So you can be shooting while you've got the shield enabled, which is again a kind of a first.
Yeah.
And then we also showed some things like anti-gravity grenades. If you have artificial gravity on a
Right.
ship, what a better weapon than to disable the gravity for your foes, and then they're sort of like sitting ducks.
And then utilize it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you can mix all of those things into one mission, right? You're talking about going from the pre-planning phase to then going into the mission, then doing the dogfighting, then doing the zero-G, and then going back into the regular thing, and that's all contained in one space. That's awesome. Yeah.
And it's all seamless too.
Right.
What we're showing in this game is the ability to go from sort of, let's say, on Earth, boots on the ground combat, call in your Jackal, get in, launch up into low orbit, and then have a dogfight, and then assault an enemy
Right.
ship,
It's crazy. Yeah.
take it out, return to your Jackal, fly back to Retribution, get met in the hangar by your deck handler and the air boss, go back up to the bridge level, and then choose another mission.
Right.
It's all supposed to be a seamless experience, and it all takes place over the course of one incredibly harrowing day.
Yeah.
I think Salter and Reyes are going to need a nap after
Yeah,
it.
they might.
Yeah, a nap and like a steak.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Do we have it? Are we good? Cool. All right. So I think we covered it. We haven't really talked about multiplayer.
Sure.
Can we talk about multiplayer?
I can't talk about multiplayer
Okay.
because I'm not a multiplayer guy,
Right.
and I'm pretty sure Jamie can't talk about
Right.
multiplayer either.
I'll have to follow up with you guys about that.
But if you want to come hang out with us,
I would.
come see us at COD XP, September 2nd through September 4th,
Right.
at the Forum here in Los Angeles. Tickets have already gone on sale. It's
Awesome.
going to be an event like no other. Were you at the last COD XP?
I was not, unfortunately.
Neither was I. I hear it was incredible, and I hear it's going to be more of the same.
Sounds awesome.
There'll be music. There will be a VR setup where you can virtually fly a Jackal. We're going to be showing MP. We're going to be showing zombies. It should be awesome.
Awesome. Right. Zombies too. That's
Yes.
crazy. We got to run it. We're good. Let's do it. So let's run the trailer. Thank you so much for coming out.
Of course.
Appreciate you guys being here.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah. Cheers.